quite relevant actually in today's world. We've gone through quite a strange period the last couple of years. The economy's starting to grow again, which is excellent to see. But actually businesses, while they're starting to grow, they absolutely would be looking for opportunity to make cost savings. So take us through this slide if you could both. What does digital, becoming digital, how does that improve cost savings within an organization?
Yeah, this is such a, again, we said right at the beginning, you could probably do 5 hours on this one slide, frankly. I think in its most simplistic sense, for me, I kind of break it down into two areas. You've got the tangible costs, and then you've got the intangible costs. So when people think of cost saving, they initially go to, and frankly, this is why sometimes conversations with organizations like us don't happen, because they initially feel that means I've got to lose people. Absolutely not. That's very rarely. I've never implemented a solution where anybody's lost their job as a consequence of it. Far from it. The tangible things are things like time. So you can, with the business process reviews in particular that Michelle does, we can go in and we can really define how much time an individual or a department is spending from day to day on this process, and that's a tangible cost. Now, while there may not be a physical saving in that, okay, if you cut that out, there's going to be a pot of money in the corner for you, it's about applying your time to the things that are the most relevant and the most impactful. And Michelle touched on it earlier, that 80-20 rule. No digital platform out there is going to remove everything 100%. It doesn't exist. It can't exist. But ultimately, what we're going to do is take the majority away from you, so that rather than you spending 60-70% on the mundane tasks, you're actually not spending any time on those now, which now enables you to put more time and effort into the things that really make a value difference to the process. So that's a tangible example. Another one, which is the most basic of all, we did some work with Network Rail a few years ago. This was before my Crown days, and they were spending £25,000 a year on paper in their accounts payable department, which is a very tangible cost, right? Implement a digital solution, 25 grand saved, bang, day one. There's an element of return on investment. So there's tangible elements to it. The intangible ones are the ones that most people don't think of and actually can add the most value. So one of those is compliance. It's an intangible thing, but if you're not compliant and you're not following the guidelines and you're not doing your audit trails properly, there could be financial penalties to that. There could be consequences to that. People could lose their jobs as a consequence of that. That's a cost benefit, but it's an intangible one. Sustainability, which we've spoken about there, everybody's talking about, quite rightly, being green and performing better as a business from a sustainability perspective, identifying what our carbon footprints are and improving them. With our business process reviews, we can look at how an AP department is impacting the sustainability growth and objectives within an organization. Now, that's an intangible benefit right there. There isn't likely to be a pot of money at the end of it, but being able to contribute and quote what you're able to achieve from a sustainability is another piece. Michelle spoke about it earlier. Moving on to another element, which is early and late payment benefits and penalties. Again, there's probably not one example of what that might be from a cost saving perspective, but because you're digital, because you're now able to utilize the early payment, and because you're now not getting penalized, there's a return on investment. So again, during the business process reviews, Michelle will look at all of these things and go, right, your benefits are time, tangible. We're going to be able to contribute to your sustainability goals. You're going to be more compliant, which reduces any risks from a security perspective. Recruitment is another one. If you're losing people because they're dealing with the mundane tasks, because they're stressed, because you're not in a modern approach, you're probably having to pay a recruitment agent every time you're having to recruit someone. Well, because your staff turnover is now going to be potentially less because of a digital approach, you're paying less out in fees. There's an intangible return on investment. And I touched on a couple of other elements as well. I'll pause there because I recognize that was quite a lot of information, but did that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. Michelle?
It did, yeah. And I think the there's only two things I can really add to that, which is when we talk about cost savings per se, which is obviously very, very tangible. What's quite interesting is that when I go into a company, it's quite rare if I can actually get someone to tell me what their current cost is to process an invoice per invoice. It's very rare if anybody can actually put their finger on that cost. So it's quite an interesting start to a project to try and actually get the benchmark of what it is currently costing you now to process an invoice, and then show how we can then save that over a change to their process or automation. So there's that, and then also the time. There's the time on how much you're saving to do a task, but there's work time, but there's also wait time. So how much in your process is actually you just waiting, or it's got to get over to a different office or a different person, and they only work on Thursday, so you have to add in 2 days wait here. There's a whole element of saving, which is routing stuff automatically, or being able to do something in a touch of a button rather than having to sign something or stamp something, or the real old school ways of doing things. Then that there's those time savings as well. So, and quite often they are intangible, because there's no 3 days to wait for someone is not something you can put into a time saving really, but that's 3 days of a process that's just been shortened, and that's how you get your early payment discounts or things like that.
And anybody that hasn't watched the business process review masterclass, and I recommend you do because it's amazing, we talk about the why, and this is exactly what the why. This is one of the main reasons, one of the main focuses on the why. Why am I going to go digital? Why am I going to invest more money in another piece of technology and all of the associated services relevant to it? This is what will help you define. This is the why, and that why might be the tangible costs I mentioned. It might be the intangible. It might be a combination of the two. It might only be one thing. But what we're there to do is define the why and give you that return on investment before you move forward with the technology. And I can't stress that enough. Understanding the why, which sits into everything I've waffled about for the last couple of minutes, is the most important thing for me.
Yeah, it is the starting point. It's the reason or the motivation or the trigger that and it's not even necessarily why am I going to have this application? It's why do I want to change things?
Why do I want to change it?
Why is this a problem? Why do I do what I'm doing? It's you're starting with those questions, and then you're going into because then that gives you the purpose to the what. What is it that I want to accomplish then, or what are the needs of my stakeholders, or before we get into all the other W's, which there are in that process.